presidential advisor Steve Gill, who joins us now. Steve, good to see you this morning. Look, in all of this, it's interesting. He's still determined to put a fight, isn't he, Ron DeSantis? And yet, it's going to be quite a tough battle now that we know Trump is definitely in the running.
Yeah, and you cracked the code. This world tour is a pretty good precursor to the fact that he's running. The only thing missing is he doesn't have one of those like satin jackets like rock groups do when they do their world tours. I think he missed the opportunity there. But he does have, I think, a challenge with Donald Trump. The indictment, the other legal action, and the fact that Donald Trump has come out swinging like crazy against Ron DeSantis is going to make it a very tough run for Ron DeSantis to supplant Trump as the Republican nominee, even though a lot of people think that DeSantis would have a better chance in the general election at attracting women voters, young voters, independent voters than Donald Trump will.
How has this gone down, this world tour gone down in the US and in US media? Because a lot of this will be DeSantis wanting to look statesmanlike, isn't it?
Well, and to burnish his international credentials. As a governor, he doesn't do a lot in the international foreign policy arena, although, as you pointed out, Britain and Florida do a lot of business together. So there is a legitimacy to his trip to London. But on this trip, he's been to Japan, he's been to South Korea, he's been to Israel. And again, it's to kind of wrap himself in the foreign policy credentials that he wants to have. Even though Americans tend to be pretty isolationist when it comes to foreign policy and our politics, I think he's still wanting to look like he'll be able to perform on the world stage. And I think, he's got the personality, he's got the charisma to do that. The question is whether or not Americans will vote on that basis rather than the economy and some of the other issues that are going to be at the top of mind.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it worked so well for Obama, didn't it, when he was running? You sort of think about those scenes in Germany and things, and it worked really well for him. But you have to say, do Americans, do they take back those visuals? Do they think, well, someone like Ron DeSantis is popular on a world stage, getting a decent reception, compared to Trump, of course, where he's just surrounded by protesters?
Well, I think part of it is he's wanting to establish himself that compared to Biden, he's somebody that can get along with foreign leaders, that has respect from foreign leaders, that'll be able to perform on a world stage a lot better than we've seen from President Biden and his administration, particularly because of his military background as well. When we've seen the debacle of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the tragedy of what's going on in Sudan, the looming World War III, perhaps, America gets further embroiled in Ukraine and Russia, and then you've got China looming out there threatening Taiwan. I think his foreign policy agenda is to show how he can compete with Biden more than how he'll compete with Trump in a primary. And his biggest problem with Trump right now, I think, is that Trump has made it clear he may not do debates. So Trump's going to basically do, I guess to use a boxing term, the rope-a-dope and not give Ron DeSantis the chance to land any blows on him, while at the same time, if DeSantis performs in debates with the lower tier candidates, he'll be looking like he's at the kiddie table at Thanksgiving rather than performing on the big stage.
And this fight really is ramping up now between Trump and DeSantis, isn't it? I mean, Trump, who's been complimentary, it must be said, of DeSantis before, has started to really ramp up his attacks towards him. And then back at home, DeSantis is now facing that conflict with Disney.
Yeah, and one of the things that DeSantis has in his favor is that he is a younger candidate, has a lot of the same policies as Trump, and has a huge war chest available to go after Trump. But Trump already has third parties that are attacking DeSantis aggressively, both on TV and in ads around the country. So they're already taking shots at DeSantis. He just had the legislature in Florida pass legislation that will allow him to run for president and keep his job as governor at the same time. There was a law in Florida that would have prevented that. The legislature has just changed that to open the door for him to run without having to quit his governor's job. But at the same time, he's going to wait another 2 or 3 weeks until the legislature finishes to officially get in the race. And at that point, he's going to be 30 points perhaps in the Republican primary behind Donald Trump.
It's interesting. What do you make of the experts who say, look, if it was Trump-Biden again, Biden would win? What if it was Trump-DeSantis? Biden-DeSantis.
Yeah, I think, in 2016, I always felt like Donald Trump was the only candidate who could beat Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton was probably the only candidate who could lose to Donald Trump. I think we're looking at the same sort of thing here. Joe Biden may be the only who can beat Donald Trump, but probably would not be able to beat Ron DeSantis. We saw in our midterm elections here in the U.S., where Donald Trump's endorsement of candidates carried a huge amount of weight with Republican primary voters, but then didn't carry over as much in the general election as he had problems with suburban women, independent voters, young voters. That has not been cured. And a lot of those same demographics appeal more to a DeSantis campaign than they do to Biden. And I think gives Biden a chance to maybe beat Trump, but probably have a harder time against Ron DeSantis.
And Steve, whilst we've got you, I did just want to get your reaction on President Biden announcing that he was going to run for a second term, because I know there's been lots of concern over his age and the fact he'll be 86, I think, by the end of that second term.
Yeah, it's interesting in his video announcement, because they didn't trust him to actually do a live announcement that he could fumble and bumble through. He didn't mention a single accomplishment. Mainly because there aren't any accomplishments that he can really run on. He talked about being in favor of freedom and democracy. A lot of folks kind of scoff at that when you look at the weaponization of our justice departments, our FBI, the lack of freedom that was imposed with people being forced to wear masks and shutting schools. I don't think the I'm for freedom and you're not is going to carry Biden very far when people are paying too much for groceries, too much for gas. Again, seeing the foreign policy disasters around the world. People, I think, are going to vote their pocketbooks, not, some kind of old man in the basement, screaming, "Get off my yard."
No, say what you mean, Steve. Say what you mean. Really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.